Welcome back to Python for Beginners. This is episode 2, and in this episode, we'll cover the basics of Python syntax.
Let's get started. Alright, so we're in VS Code, and in this video, we'll cover basic syntax, functions and variables, operations, and then we'll do some exercises. So starting off with chapter 1, basic syntax. There's two main ways to write comments in Python. The first is like this, to comment everything after a hashtag, and you can also do this after valid code. So like this. And the second way is using triple quotes. So you can either use it with singular triple quotes or you can do it with double triple quotes. So comments won't be read by Python, and they're only meant to be there for developers, so it's easier to go back to code and understand what happens. And in Python, we don't use curly brackets and semicolons when we code. For example, if we take a look at the C++ code, it uses curly brackets here, and it uses semicolons to show new lines. In fact, I can just make this all one line, and this is still valid C++ code. But in Python, we do something different. As you can see, we just use a colon here, and we don't have semicolons at the end. To declare a new line, we just put a new line here, and we have to indent. Compared to C++ where we don't need to, here we have to. So that's the basic syntax. Now on to chapter 2. The most important function in all of Python, in my opinion, is the print function. To use a function, put the function name here, and then put two curly brackets to indicate that it is a function. And whatever is passed into a function are called arguments. These are also arguments, but they are optional. So let's copy this exercise and let's try them out in a test file. So let's go ahead and print this out, and you can see that it's blank because we didn't put anything in here. Hello world, hello world. The way this print function works is that this comma is a separator, and this sep is, as you guessed it, a separator. It's the separating character. So by default, the separator is set to be a space, and that's why there is a space over here. But you can change this up. So let's say you want to put a smiley face here. So then you can do that, and I'm just gonna go ahead and comment out some code so Python does not read it. Save it and run it, and you can see that there's a smiley face there. And if you don't want any space in between, you can make the separator blank, or you can put a plus sign here to concatenate the strings together. We'll talk about string concatenation in the next chapter, but as you can see, it's there's no space in between. Now what this and part means is it's the last character that is shown after everything is printed. So by default, it's /n. /n is, this slash is an escape character, and /n means to print a new line. So if you're doing /n, you can just delete this, but there's two main exit characters you'll need to know, and this is /n and also /t, which is going to be very useful because /t is tab. So let's just make the separator /t, and we'll replace this plus with a comma. So let's print this out. You can see that there's now a tab over here. So very, 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 very useful. And it's important to know when to change the separator, when to change the end, and when to use a comma or a plus. So remember, these are optional arguments, and these are also all arguments. Now let's go back. So this is our second exercise. This is the input function, and it gets the input. So if we want a simple program which asks for a name and prints it out, we save it to this variable. You can think about variables as like suitcases. They can store data, you can replace variables, and it's just like storage in memory. So we get the input and it prints it out. So let's go ahead and copy all of this code, and so let's go ahead and run this. So hi, what is your name? Let's put Bob. Whoa, your name is Bob? So you can see how input is also pretty useful, and especially when you're a beginner, you're going to be doing a lot of things in terminal, so you're going to need to know input, which is a function. Now exercise 3, variables are things that hold data. So to assign a value, use the equal operator. So this is an integer, which is 12. This is a float, which is 12.0. Floats can handle decimals while integers cannot, but integers are better because they take up less space in memory. So when you're working with a lot of files and things like that, it's just better to use integers. These are booleans, which can hold true or false values. This is a list, which can hold just anything inside of it, different types and things like that. So very useful. This is a string. This is a special character which tells Python to check the next line. Strings are immutable, which means you cannot change independent sections of the string. You can only replace all of it in one go. This is a dictionary. So dictionaries are defined using curly brackets. Lists are defined using square brackets. And there's colons to separate the keys, which are these things, what you use to access the values, and values, which is the value you're going to get out of it. Now it's important to know that if you're using quotes inside, for example, I need double quotes for this piece of dialogue here, or I need a single quote for this apostrophe, then use the other types of quotes around it, and Python will understand that, hey, this is all like a string. This isn't going to initialize new string, this is a part of the string. So remember to do that. Now let's take a look at sets. Sets are also using curly brackets, but the difference is that they don't use colons. Now tuples are a data type unique to Python, and it can hold a combination of different types. It's also immutable, just like strings. So if you're going to change something, you have to change all of it. And this is the type function, very useful. You put in the variable and it returns the type. So this can be useful when debugging, because print statements are useful when debugging. So for example, my set, it would return class set, and this would say the contents, which is just this. Now to unpack a tuple, we assign the tuple to A, B, and C. So lots of different would be A, B would be this list, and C would be this int. And then you can print it out if you'd like. Now to convert types, simply put it in the function of your preferred type. So in general, if it makes sense, it works. You have this integer over here, and you want to convert it to a string, you can just put it in this string function and it will work. Now on to chapter 3, operations on numbers, variables, brackets, and logic gates. So Python follows the rules of PEDMAS, which is parentheses, exponents, division, or multiplication, addition or subtraction. And we have lots of operations here. There's the addition symbol, there's the subtraction symbol, there's the multiplication symbol, and there is the this is the exponent sign. So in general, spacing between operations does not matter. So this is the same, and so forth. But when you're talking about things that use two characters like this, these are not the same. Even though this takes up two characters, treat it as one character, because that's what Python treats it as. Because this is the exponent sign, this is the multiplication sign. So there are 3 division operators. There is normal division, which is this, and it always returns a float. So 15 divided by 4 is 3.75. If it was 16 divided by 4, it would say 4.0 to indicate that it's a float. There is floor division, which is the whole number of times b goes into a, and it returns an integer. So 15 divided by 4, well, 4 times 3 is equal to 12, which is the last multiple of 4 that's lower than 15. So the answer will be 3, so the output will be 3. And there's also modulus, and that's the remainder of a divided by b. So the answer will be 3, because again, 15 minus 12, which is the highest multiple of 4 before 15, is 3. Now there's shorthand operations, and many times when we need to write simple equations, we use shorthand operations, and that's going to be very useful to know in a real world setting because we use it a bunch of times. So it's simply just the operation. So like division, modulus, blah, 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 with the equal sign afterwards. And what it means is the left variable is equal to the left variable, the operation, the right variable. So it's very useful, and try to use shorthand whenever you can because it's just faster that way and it looks cleaner that way. Now, operations on variables. So variables that are not type int or float can also be operated on as long as all the variables are of the same type. There are some exceptions though. So let's say we have these strings here. We can do string concatenation, and that's what I was talking about for the print statement. So this will simply just smush these two strings together. And if we print this out, well, I put a space here, but if we print this out, then it would be like exclamation mark and then my directly. So now this is an ultra long string, and you can see that we're using p from PEMDAS, the parentheses here, to prioritize these two strings and concatenate them together. And also we're doing string by integer multiplication. So basically the string will be repeated integer amount of times. So this entire phrase will be hello with 13 O's. Now this is a super long list, and you can just simply combine lists together by just using this plus operation. So the end result will be something like that. And Python uses the same symbols for multiple things. So the ** symbol here means unpacking, not exponents. So let's say we have one dictionary here and another dictionary here. So when we combine these dictionaries, we're going to unpack them, and then we're going to smush all the values together. Now, dictionaries can only have one unique key, so you can't have food here and then like food somewhere in this dictionary, or else that's going to result in an error. But also in the same dictionary, you cannot have multiple keys. That just doesn't work. But yeah, if you want to combine two dictionaries, which would be very useful, then you can do something like this. Now, in many cases, you'll have to debug by printing variables, and something useful you can do is use f strings. So f strings are strings that have an f before, and they use curly brackets to display variables. If I remove this f, it'll just show name and then the bracket, name bracket. So put the f there to format it, and it's way more readable. It's way better. So let's copy this and paste it here and see how it looks. And you can see that it looks clean, it looks nice, and it's just way better to debug. Now you can use the sep argument in the print statement, and you can use commas and things like that, but most of the time you'll want to use f strings just because it's more convenient. Now let's talk about how to use operations on variables. So logic gates here, this is very useful, especially when working with if statements that we're going to cover later in this tutorial series, but it's equals equals. So we're testing to see if this value is equal to this value. This is not equal to, pretty straightforward. This is greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. And these all return true if the comparison is true. Well, like if these two are the same result, then it will return true. These two are not the same result, it will return true, so on and so forth. Now these are using keywords, and not is a keyword that negates the values. So let's say a is a boolean that's set to true, then not a would be false. So changes true to false and vice versa. That's also very useful. And a or b. So returns true if at least one of a or b is true. There's also and, which makes sure that both a and b are true. So now that we've completed all of the theory, let's try out some exercises. So let's go ahead, copy this. We'll go ahead and attempt this in just a second. Alright, so let's try completing this challenge. It's going to ask for A and B and return C. So this formula is not going to be understood by Python. This makes no sense, right? It's smart, but it's not that smart. So let's ask for A and B and return C. So ask for A and B. So A is equal to, what function do we have to write here? Well, of course we have to write the input function. So what is A? And you can see that I'm using the double quotes inside, and in order to use double quotes inside, I have to use single quotes out here. And since we're getting a number, we have to wrap this in a integer. We can also do float, but I'm only going to be passing integers into this for now. So A, B, and B. Because if we don't wrap this in an integer, we're going to get it back as a string, since it reads everything from terminal as a string. So now that we have A and B, let's calculate C. So C is equal to, let's do this. So this is valid Python code, right? It's using the exponent sign over here. But in order to do square root, what you can do is a little bit of maths and pass in a float into the exponent. Now we want to print C. So let's do print. Now you can choose between using a comma or an F string. Let's just do an F string. So your C value is, and then to put that there. So now let's go ahead and test this out. What is A? Let's say 4. What is B? 3. And your C value is 5, which makes mathematical sense. So if you got an answer similar to this, then congratulations, you have the fundamentals down pretty well. So let's just delete this and let's try out the other exercise. So once again, I'm just going to leave for a second. All right, so let's copy pi. That's what we're going to use. And let's ask for the radians. So ask for radians. So we will just use rad. So we want to take it as a float. Since radians works with pi, it's going to be most likely a float. We want to take the input. And we're going to say, what is your radian amount? And now we want to calculate degrees. So we're going to use deg is equal to radian. Oh, no, sorry. Radian times bracket 180 divided by pi, because that's the formula. And then you want to print it out. So print degrees. So you have to print degrees. And if you want to be, or let's do the other way. So your degree amount is, so we can do it like this, or we can do string concatenation like this. You want to put a space there because it's just going to smush the two things together. Although if we are doing string concatenation, make sure to put this in a string. So let's save that. Let's run this. So what is your radian amount? Now Python, it makes a strike between speed and accuracy. So it's not going to be exact, but yeah, it should be around 360 degrees here. So that's very good. And if you want, you could also end it off. So end is equal to, let's say we can just put like degrees here, or you can also put like the degree sign if you want to, and that will also work. Let's test this one more time. 0 radians, which is 0 degrees.
Congratulations, you now know the basics of Python. Over the next few episodes, we're going to cover more functions and more features about each data type. But until the next time,